Hey, what's up guys? So let's go over the latest firmware version for the R3. It's firmware version 1.63. Now this firmware update's been out for a little while now. It's not brand new or anything, but I haven't done a video on it yet. However, there are 3 key changes here in this update that we should go over. And so in this video, let's go over what all the improvements are, as well as how it compares to the custom Uniden R3 SE firmware. That way we can go over what the best options are here for your R3. Now the first improvement to talk about is the addition of a third K-block, specifically for those pesky Mazda CX-5s. Those are one of the most common sources of blind spot falses here on the Uniden detectors, and finally we have a K-block here to help address these false alerts. Now the frequency range for this third K-block here covers 24.121 to 24.124. Now that said, the CX-5s transmit on a slightly smaller frequency range, only around 24.123 to 124. And I think this frequency range that the K-block covers is actually a little bit too wide, given the fact that a lot of police radar guns on K-band are specifically tuned to transmit right around 24.125 or so. And so for that reason, I put in a request for Uniden to maybe tighten down that frequency range a little bit and not be so aggressive necessarily. And so hopefully in a future firmware update, we'll actually see this K-block actually narrowed down a little bit to cover just the frequency ranges that we need. Nevertheless, I think this additional K-block is very helpful to keep the R3 that much quieter when you're out driving with it. Now, the second change to take a look at is the fact that they've added Gatso detection here for the Gatso RT3 and RT4 photo radar systems. Now, as far as how effective the detection is here on the R3, I don't know. I haven't seen any testing done on it yet. I will say that the K-band frequency range that it can scan for is still hardware limited. It can't scan down lower than 24.050 or so. That's actually one of the changes they made with some of the newer Unidens, like the R4, for example. So if you face a lot of photo radar, some of the newer detectors are going to be better actually scanning a wider range of frequency here on K-band. But if you do encounter the Gatso, it's nice to just be able to now turn on that feature here on the R3, and now the detector is capable of detecting it. And then finally, the last change to talk about is the fact that now if you're using Uniden's update software to update your detector, as of firmware version 1.63, you can now use the update software to go in and change the different settings on your detector as well. This is going to be true both for Windows and for Mac. Now, I have noticed that with the update software, it's only the Windows update software that allows me to update my R3 here to the latest firmware, 1.63. If I try connecting my detector on the Mac update software, it can't actually find the latest version of the update software. And speaking to Uniden, they said there's actually an update planned for the Mac version of the update software to help address this issue. The reason why this happens in the first place is there's actually not one but 2 hardware versions of the R3. During its development, they actually changed in the production process which CPU is being used just due to like parts availability and whatnot. And so they need to update the Mac update software to support the newer hardware versions of the R3. So if you have an older version of the detector, well, you're gonna have to wait for the newer version of the Mac update software to support the new CPUs, or I guess the older CPUs for 1.63. But either way, once you've got your detector updated, it's nice to finally have that additional K-block feature specifically for your Mazda CX-5s. And then of course, for those of you guys who face the Gatso photo radar systems, well, now the R3 is capable of detecting them. Now there's another custom version of the firmware that's available. It's created by Mitharu, a fellow enthusiast. He created the R3 SE firmware. I've done a whole video going over all the different features and whatnot of that firmware. And the only advantage here of 1.63 is the fact that you've now got the Gatso detection available. Otherwise, I think the R3 SE firmware is better still. For example, the Mazda CX-5 filter that we've got here with this latest Uniden version of the firmware, well, the R3 SE firmware already has that feature as well, and it's got the tighter frequency range scanning of just 24.123 to 24.124. Additionally, it's got 5 different K-blocks built in, not just 3, and it has a 6th custom K-block that you can have programmed into your firmware as well. Plus, there's some additional features that are available, such as the automatic sensitivity adjustments, if you like. So like an advanced highway option, if you wanted to switch between those different sensitivity modes. You've got an auto city mode if you want to switch between like highway and city mode, for example. Plus, it's got some additional anti-theft features built in to display your name at the detector's startup in case the detector gets stolen or something. And people can actually reach out with an email address that shows up on the detector's startup to help return the detector back to you, again, in case the detector gets stolen. Now, this R3 SE firmware, again, it is a third-party paid firmware update. It's not free, but if you've got an R3, I still think that would be the way to go. But if you want kind of the free firmware versions that are provided from Uniden, and or if you face Gatso in your area, then yeah, 1.63 is going to be the way to go. Down in the video description, I'll put links to where you can grab the latest update, to where you can grab the update software, where you can purchase the R3 SE firmware, to my video that goes over this update, and then of course to where you can purchase the R3 if you haven't done so yet. And so with that said, that's a run through here as far as this latest firmware version for the R3. We've got the added K-block for Mazda CX-5s, we've got the Gatso detection available, and now we can actually use the update software to change settings using the computer instead of having to go in through the detector directly. And so with that said, yeah, that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys are doing great, and I'll see you in the next one.